Delicious
All right,
coffee. What
here
a
we
good
go.
latte.
Another true Brew Bobcast here at the end of Détente Road at Cafe Détente. I have a really cool guest. I just met him, Dodd Davis.
Yes, right?
That's right. How's the coffee, Dodd?
Delicious.
Are you a coffee man?
I am. I love coffee. This latte is fantastic.
That's our own coffee. Did I tell you that?
No, I did not know that.
Well, we don't roast it,
Okay.
but we go to roasters that have our own coffee. So
Okay.
I'm not a coffee snob. I just started getting into the coffee the last 3 or 4 years.
Right.
But it's one of those little hidden jewels in life, you know?
Yeah, well, your studio is fantastic, too. I love it. Very comfortable.
Well, thanks for coming by. All right, so great story with Dodd. Got many different areas we can branch off into, but if you don't mind, give everybody an idea of your military history to sort of build our conversation a little around. I know you did a few tours in Afghanistan and all, but could you let us?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. It's kind of a strange history that I have in the United States military because, I started out, I was going to school at Ole Miss, and I was in my second year, and I got a phone call from my dad, and he was like, things are tough at work. I need some extra help. And I was like, man, I got a perfect idea. I'm going to go join the Marine Corps. And so that's what I did. And the place where I joined, it was, or where I was going to be going to drill, because I joined as a reservist.
What year about?
Oh, this was in 1987.
Okay.
Yeah, the end of 1987 when I was joining up.
Okay.
All right. So I went to boot camp at Parris Island. That's the birthplace of real Marines. Any of your Marine listeners out there, they'll get the inside joke.
Right.
And I was in for several years, and then it was right at Thanksgiving, right at this time of year, and 1990 is when the spin-up started to happen for Desert Storm, and we were activated to go overseas for that. I was a 0331, which is a machine gunner. And, I remember I was at work. I had a construction job at the time at the Exxon refinery, and I got a call at work in the...
So you were in the reserves and got pulled in.
Correct. And so, I actually had 2 times as a reservist where I was living my life at home, working, doing kids and sports and things like that. The first deployment was not like that, but I was working and living life, going to school, etc. And got pulled out of that, sent overseas, and then came back home.
What were your assignments on the first Desert Storm?
I was a 0331 machine gunner. So
you saw action.
Yes, sir. I'm a combat veteran.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was actually 2 days before the ground offensive started when we were doing a route reconnaissance mission for an artillery unit, and we came across a company-size element of Iraqis. And, and that's what we were there for, was to help clear the path for the artillery units that were setting up in that area.
So did you have any prep time? I know you were trained, but you was on the couch for a minute, right?
Yeah, yeah.
and then you get pulled in. So how does somebody get in the mindset from working a construction job to now I'm a machine gun?
Yeah, it's it's different. A lot of the
I would say.
a lot of fleet Marines, they look at reservists as not as satisfactory as fleet Marines.
Like you're not quite battle ready as
Yeah,
you
yeah,
once
yeah.
were.
And yeah, yeah, and for the most part, I would agree with that. If you look at the readiness of the Fleet Marine Force compared to the reserves. However, in that particular case, man, we were a locked on unit. I mean, we really were. We had just completed a combined arms exercise at 29 Palms in California, and we had passed it with flying colors. Our particular unit, the heavy machine gun platoon, did fantastic out there.
Now, how big is that unit? How many folks?
In the heavy machine gun platoon?
In you said you
Yeah.
refer to your unit. We looking at 100 people?
Oh, no, no. Oh, so in weapons company, there's about 200 people, but in the machine gun platoon, we probably had 30 people.
30.
Yeah.
So y'all was a tight group.
Tight. And in fact, we probably had 8 or 9 members that went to the same high school. My younger brother was in the unit with me.
So y'all go way back.
Yeah.
Wait, you had a younger brother
That
in
was
the 30.
in the unit, in the machine gun platoon.
God, what?
When we got activated, my parents had to sign a release with the Marine Corps so we would stay together.
Now, what kind of guns were y'all shooting in 1990?
Yeah, Mark 19s and 50 cals. So Mark 19 is a 40 millimeter grenade launcher. And 50 cal is,
Now,
the
50.
Mongoose.
How realistically, what you train for on a 50 cal? How far out can I know it can go a long way.
Yeah, it'll go
but
out. It'll reach out and touch
accurately,
'em.
what you throwing? How
Man,
far?
I don't remember the exact yardage. It's been a long
Several
time.
hundred yards.
Oh man, it's a lot
Half a mile.
further than that.
Yeah.
No, it's probably, you could probably reach out to, I'm going to guess from memory, but I'm going to go with 1,500
Way
meters,
out
something
there.
like. Yeah, it's way out there.
Wow.
It's way out there. You can reach out and touch them.
So okay, now you're engaged in your first Iraqis. How long was that first? I don't know what you call it. Help me out.
Battle.
Battle.
It was- yeah.
How long did you battle until you sort of?
We subdued them fairly quickly. It wasn't all that long of a fight. We wound up capturing somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think it was like 170 or 180.
Was certain group of them fighting and certain group of them?
Yeah. It was a
They
small number that was willing to fight, and then the rest were just trying to get captured.
Yeah. Which y'all were relieved at that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And so, what was y'all first mission? Were y'all trying to get to a certain place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where was that?
Bob, we never knew.
Really?
We knew, but we didn't know. I think that is the toughest part about military operations in a combat zone for the lowly grunts, right? Is because we're just not given that much information.
As need to know basis.
Correct.
Could be hour to hour.
It could be, it may not even be that much. We're given frequency changes on radios. We get maps, and we're, given just the right amount of information to keep us going day to day. And, a lot of it is just, we sit around and we'll wait and wait for traffic to start moving again. Some of it was the most frustrating stuff that you could ever imagine. I could tell you some funny stories, and I could tell you some stories that are, not so funny, and, some, just.
Well, they call it kind of the fog of war. Is that an accurate statement?
Absolutely. And, and back then, too, when we got home, there was no counseling or anything like that. Nobody was saying, "Hey, go to the VA, make sure you get this, and this, and that." And so most everybody, it was just getting released back into the wild.
Wow. I think, I want to get to that, but I'd like to sort of finish a little bit of your deployment. So, you land, and how long do you stay in battle?
Oh, so that one battle was all of, it couldn't have been any more than, maybe an hour start to finish. Probably not even that long, maybe 20 minutes of what I would consider real action where people were like intensely on guard, Yeah. I would say it wasn't much more than that.
Well, how long was that tour for you?
It was 6 months in country. 6 months in country, and that's what the deployments were for the Marine Corps back then. It could have been longer.
Now, I remember a lot of airstrikes too.
Y'all
was like really hitting them up there, huh?
Yes. They most of that war was done from the air.
Yeah. And did you see any of those big wellhead fires and stuff in the desert?
Oh man, I got pictures in my phone right now that I could show you.
One of the companies I worked for was Well, and Mr. Pat showed us some pictures. It was actually turned the sand into glass. Did you see any of that?
Yeah.
How hot is that?
Well,
God.
so like I was saying, I have pictures of when they first started lighting the oil wells on fire. And so all you see is the flames off in the distance, and the smoke is going up, and the sky is turning black. And so it looks eerie, but it's not that bad. But then I have other pictures where I'm standing holding a sign, and on the sign it says it's 10 o'clock in the morning.
And it's like we looking at each other.
And it's dark. Without the flash on the camera, you couldn't see her.
Oh, because of the dark smoke.
It's dark.
I see what you're saying.
It's midnight black.
Yeah. That
in
was
the
oil.
desert, Bob.
Yeah, no, that was some thick crude oil that was burning out of there. But
Yeah. And so we're just out in it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We just breathe it all the time.
Terrible.
And it wasn't just for a few days.
They might have had H2S in there too, which CO2 and all that stuff burning off of it. Okay, so you finished that 6 months, you come home. Now you said you had a second tour.
Yes, I did. So I should tell you, because it is relevant to the second deployment, that when I came home from that first deployment, I wasn't the same. I started to exhibit all the signs that one would think would be classic for PTSD. I did not know this then. Mm-hmm. I had no idea. Nobody talked to me about PTSD. I had no idea what to look for or how to even figure it out. I learned this way after the fact. But I was showing all the signs. My drinking was way out of control. I was having, just doing a lot of, risk-taking behavior, unnecessary, risk, isolation, detachment, yeah, avoiding, like going to a restaurant, having to sit with my back to the wall so I can, see out, all of those things.
You were traumatized.
Not sleeping at night, sitting up and just watching a TV with static on it.
Trying to medicate yourself.
Drinking like crazy. So I'm going through all this. I wrecked one marriage. And
where's home at this time?
In Baton Rouge.
In Baton Rouge.
And through all of this, especially around the time of that divorce, man, I really started to miss being overseas. Because there was so much uncertainty in my life. And I had 3 kids at home, okay?
So you're in the dysfunction city right now.
Complete dysfunction. I cannot see the beauty I have in my life. I can't see it. I'm delusional.
Man, I am so sorry about that, but thank you for being honest right now. So.
Oh, a lot of people say thank you for your service and all that, but I was really sick when I did that, I know this now, too. In hindsight, right? I missed it. I missed the camaraderie. I missed the certainty of the days.
Being
in the military, knowing what to expect.
Did you think they understood you more than the civilians?
Oh, yeah.
Was that the attraction, you think, looking at it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a different setting, You just don't have the same feelings in the civilian world. And, everything is mission oriented, and there's an element of danger in everything you do. And so
it was a strange structure
chaos.
You was going after, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was like a strange, bizarre.
You gotta be, yeah. It's like if you're not, if you don't have a chance of dying,
So you was like an adrenaline junkie?
A little bit. That's another classic kind of symptom.
PTSD?
Yeah, it's another.
So were there other soldiers like yourself following the same star, like doing what you're doing?
I know that there were other people that were signing up for deployments. I knew those guys. They said they were doing it for money.
You knew better.
Yeah. And
so let me ask you something personal. Was that less scary than you facing your family under your distress at that time?
There were several times when I was in Iraq that I was really scared. Like genuinely, like, man, this is a bad situation that I'm in right now. Like, this is not good. I don't like the way this feels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So you're in constant flight or fight.
Yes.
And flight wasn't an option at the time.
Yeah. You can't run, And then some of the work we were doing, it was just crazy how we were filling up these bomb blasts on interstate roads. It was, a 5-gallon bucket at a time. As an engineer, I should tell you this. I think you would be amazed. When we were on base, we would hear a bomb blast go off in the middle of the day. We say, all right, we got work tonight. Okay. So we would go out that night and we would come upon this road blast that's 12 feet wide, 12 feet deep. Okay.
That's a roadside bomb that we heard on the TV.
Yeah. 12 feet wide, 12 feet deep. So you can imagine the volume it's going to take to fill that hole up. All right. Now, we can't pour regular concrete into it because it's too soft. They can come in and shove more bombs into it right away. So we're using a product called Pavemend, and it comes in 5-gallon buckets.
And you dumping it in that hole?
One bucket at a time, all night long.
Well, it's like a 2-part epoxy or something? Or
We get water and put it in the bucket, use a paddle mixer. Guy picks up 2 buckets, walks over to the hole, dumps them in.
Wow.
Until it's filled.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, man,
that was on a regular basis?
On the regs. And when you got done with that, you knew you had been in a fight.
Yeah. And then I'm sure you have to have cover because people are looking at you through a scope or something all the time.
That was I didn't tell you this. So when I was going, I had gotten out of the Marine Corps after, it was a couple years after the Desert Storm deal. And when I went back in.
Under the Marines still.
When I joined back into the service, I couldn't go back into the Marines because I was going to lose way too much rank and I wasn't going to go back in as a Lance Corporal or a PFC. I just wasn't going to do it. And, but the Navy said they would let me keep my rank, even though it had been that amount of time. And so I joined the Seabees. And so I was with a Navy unit in Iraq.
Under the engineer group.
Correct, at Camp Fallujah. And so, right.
So just keep me tracking on my timeline. So, what year was this?
That's 06.
So, damn, dude.
Uh-huh.
That's 15 years later.
That's facts.
So wait, man.
Yeah.
So you were dealing with PTSD for 15 years.
Yeah.
And that was your remedy?
Yeah. I couldn't wait to go back.
All right. And so now you skipped over. Now we're in Afghanistan in Camp Fallujah.
Well, it's Iraq, but yes, at Camp Fallujah.
Iraq,
yeah.
Fallujah. Wow. All right. So tell us a little more about that tour.
Oh, man. So I'll tell you what was one of the first things I noticed, right, was so for the Desert Storm deployment, we were on the move. We were on the move. We were constantly moving. So we lived in vehicles. We lived in sand. We lived on the move. We had anywhere from 5 or 6 guys living in one Humvee.
All the time.
All the time. We did not have running water. We did not have facilities to wash hands. We had canteens to brush teeth. We had MRE toilet paper, and if you're lucky, you got some sent from home. You had an entrenching tool, right? And that's how you defecated. You'd go dig you a little hole, and that's it. And
zigging and zagging.
Yeah. And
well, because the enemy was on the move. Y'all were chasing.
Yeah.
Y'all were just chasing.
And we're trying to get out to the western edge because that's where the majority of the Marine force went out to the west to come back into the east going toward the going into Kuwait from that side. So, yeah, we didn't have a shower for 2 days. So, yeah.
how would you describe, like, human beings? It's amazing. I mean, all I do is hear stories and all. I surely can't speak to your experience, but how would you describe, how does human beings put in that situation, how would you describe it? I mean, a soldier's one way, but do you turn into a different kind of animal? Like, do you lose some sensory there? Because, yeah, I mean, you have to. It's a coping mechanism, right?
I think that you might be surprised at the amount of civility that young men, young fighting men in dire situations like that, how much civility they keep. I think you would be surprised. And, we just have to. We're living on top of each other. And yes, we play around. Yes, we joke around with each other. Yes, we're constantly picking on each other, and
But y'all knew when to
fun.
get serious.
Correct. And there were things that we didn't mess around with, right? There were things that were
You didn't chance.
mortal sins, that we didn't mess around with those things. I had a great unit, or I had a great section. All my team members were fantastic. I never worried about them. And we still get together. I'm a lot more closely aligned with my Marine buddies just because we still get together. The Navy guys, they don't get together. I don't know why, but they just don't.
Now, how long did you stay on your second Fallujah, I'll call it? How long were you in the Navy, and how long was that tour?
I was in the Navy for 3 years. That tour was in country 6 months, but it was about a 6-month spin up to get trained up and ready to go for that.
Okay, so you finished both your military duties or service. So help me out on my years now. When did you get back?
So I came back in '07 from Iraq. And, remember, there's a 16-year whatever gap.
In between.
Yeah.
And looking back at the whole campaign, there's arguments all over the place. The optimists say, well, the people who were sort of against the campaign says, hey, it was we didn't need to do all that. We overreacted. We this, and this. And then the optimists would say, and I'm generally speaking, hey, we really did away with the whole terrorist cells, and we learned enough about them, and we dismantled that, and we put them back in a place where they weren't a threat to the United States. I think the record would show that. What do you think when you look back at us as a country doing what we did?
Man. So,
I mean, are you bitter?
I have, so I look at both deployments as interconnected. A lot of people wouldn't, but I do, because Desert Storm was the beginning of it all.
That's fair.
Right?
I agree.
It was the beginning of it all. And that's where we first got involved really got involved in that neck of the woods, especially in Iraq. And Man, we invested a lot of blood, sweat, and treasure into both Iraq and Afghanistan. And I'm afraid that it just doesn't look like we were serious about it, to me.
Well, you had a different vantage point than me looking at a TV.
Yeah.
You're there. I mean, you can speak of the civilians there, and
So,
do they look like a defeated people? Do they look like? I mean,
man, they just, I tell you what it looked like to me is it looked like they wanted jobs. It looked, when I was there at that time, right? Because I would see somebody come on base and I would help direct them, right? With on base jobs. Take a couple of guys and work them in, 120-degree heat for 8 hours a day, feed them a modest lunch, and it'd be $5 in 2006. And that was a good wage for them.
I never could even. I was thinking about that before you came on. It's hard for me as an observer from the couch, measuring how fanatical they wanted us to believe that the whole country was these fanatics running around wanting to kill Americans. What was that a much lower percentage in your experience than what was sort of we were led to believe?
Bob, I don't know.
What's a fanatic, I guess, is a question.
Correct. And where are you and what time period? How bad is it in the given space that you're in? Because the answer to that question could vary wildly at any given point. And even from the country level, like where would you be in Afghanistan? But it really seems to me like the United States is really, really good at trying to export freedom, but we're not very successful.
I agree. I mean, we just pulled out all the way a year and a half ago.
I know, man.
That was a 20-year war.
Right.
And it's hard to quantify what the hell we got out of it. And if that was my son over there, I don't know. There's mixed emotions. It's easy to armchair quarterback, but I think history. I don't know what history's gonna say about it all. I would like to believe that the United States helped the world out with misdirected group of people that had a lot of oil money. That I think we learned a lot of lessons since then. But one of the things I wanted to get to, and you laid some great groundwork and interject your experience along the way. But let's talk a little more about PTSD. Let's talk about what do you do for a living to help folks with that. Let's just talk a little more on that. Does one ever get over PTSD?
I think that, from the experience that I have, I think that you can definitely get better. I think that you can resolve some aspects of the trauma. You can do work to alleviate the intensity and duration of your, when you have activations or triggering events, you can shorten the amount of time that those will last, and figure out a way to ground yourself and come back out of it pretty quickly.
Now, do you help fellow PTSD folks with those type of skills?
Yes, I work.
Could you share a couple of those techniques y'all use?
Yes. So most of the people that I see professionally, I work in a treatment center for veterans with substance abuse issues, and so it's an inpatient unit, and a lot of them come in with trauma issues as well as substance abuse issues that go hand in hand. So part of what we have to do is we have to treat the trauma along with the substance abuse to make sure that the patient has some chance of recovery, because it's really difficult if they don't have any awareness of anything that they can do about the trauma, or if they don't have any direction to turn, if they have had no counseling about it, if they've not been given any skills, anything like that to use,
they're going to do self-destruction.
Man, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
The audience can't see, but see that little picture right there? And that dude on the second row is my grandfather. He's Paul Wilson.
Yeah.
And that was 2 days before he got deployed to New Guinea in World War II.
Wow.
And he was a combat soldier, heavy duty. He fought in the Pacific Corridor.
Yeah.
And it was neat. I won't digress too bad, but he ended up dying of prostate cancer or trying to treat it. But right before we got to go to Europe, take a Europe trip, he and I, and we crossed the English Channel. He loved the European campaign.
Yeah.
But he and I finally got to talk a little bit. I was 21 at the time, and about his age when he was in it, and he was the first time. But my mom, my grandmother, everybody, that generation right there, my grandmother never slept in the bed with him again. Couldn't. He would have night tremors.
Yeah.
And one of my earliest memories is me waking up. I would sleep in the bed with him when I was a kid, and he would lay on his back and smoke a Camel cigarette, wide awake. And I'm thinking, man, he must like to smoke a lot. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't until I was much older. They had zero clinical help.
Yeah.
It was like you started it off, man.
Yeah.
You just released.
Yeah. Say, come in. All right. You good to go.
Okay, so ultimately you get back and are you getting any clinical help at this time? Are you getting any counseling or?
So it was in, I would say, right around 1997-ish, 1997. I've been kind of banged around with my head, so my memory's not fantastic. But 1997, 1998, my first wife threw me into some rooms of, with recovery meetings. And, that wasn't for me.
You were uncomfortable.
Yeah, that wasn't for me.
Uh-huh.
At that time, I didn't need any help. You know what I mean? She thought I needed help. I didn't need any help. I was just fine, right? Everything in my mind was still just fine. And so that didn't last long, but that was the first time that I was faced with, somebody really thinking I had a real problem. with alcohol, or something like that.
So she was wanting you to go because you were an alcoholic at the time.
Yes.
And
That's what she thought. She said.
right. But as you know now, because you're a counselor, you know that alcohol in your mind wasn't the problem. It was the answer to trying to get you to feel somewhat in control, and you were just lying to yourself.
It was not the problem. It was not my problem.
So when was there a moment where you said, okay, I need to get serious?
Oh man, yeah. So yeah, going back to 2017 is when that moment happened for me. It's when I realized that
20 what?
2017.
Dude, this is 20 years of suffering
Oh
with that.
man, I'm a knucklehead, man. Everything that all of my experience in what to do and what not to do around anything to do with my drinking or anything like that is all around doing it wrong and learning. And I'm not proud to say that.
Were you violent in any of it?
No, never violent. I didn't wind up going to jail a lot or anything like that. I did get pinched in a DUI. I think there's probably a funny video out there somewhere in the ether of me running over a few cones and maybe bumping into a cop's leg.
You lucky.
I know. Trust me, if you would have seen what I blew, you would really be saying I'm lucky.
Did you do a lot of that? A lot of drinking and driving and risky behavior constant?
Well, I think, yeah, I did. And I have a lot of regret about that. Even though I would tell myself, Bob, that I was being safe. You understand what I'm saying? That we tell ourselves things like that. And we believe them.
So the ego is front and center right here, right?
Oh, 100%.
So tell us, speak on that. Speak on you coming to terms with this ego of yours, because it sounds like y'all had a hell of a wrestling match.
Oh man, my ego is not my amigo, and it's been a real punching match, and there's other compounding issues for me that I've kind of come to the realization of. So, my home. When I was growing up, we didn't have a God-centered home, right? We didn't have religion or anything like that in my home. So it was all me.
So you didn't have a good father-mother figure?
No, I had... They were... Yeah, no.
Did they do the best they could?
Yes. They did the absolute best they could with what they were working with.
They didn't have the tools to give you tools.
Correct.
Okay. And so when did you realize that? Was there some forgiving that needed to take place?
Maybe 5 years ago, yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah, maybe
Wow.
5 years ago was when, yeah. The last 7 years have been great for me. I've done a lot of healing and a lot of forgiving and a lot of growth.
I was going to say a lot of forgiving.
Yeah.
Have you ever studied Dr. Gabor Mate?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I listen to his stuff all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time.
So I'm going to try to pull some stuff from him just for you to speak on. So he believes that all substance abuse it is based on trauma.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
he would say that this is a direct quote from him, okay? I'm going to jack it up a little bit, but he's like 20% of Americans fall into substance abuse or some sort of he calls them big T's and little T's.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would have a couple big T's
Yeah.
because you saw a battle and things like that, and a bunch of little traumas
Yeah.
along the way. And he said, so if there was no wars and no big T's, there's still going to be 20% Americans fall into substance abuse or whatever. In other words, 100 people can try drugs and alcohol, and still 20% is going to do that. And he would say, hey, quit looking at heredity. Don't look at look at how the tools that they were raised with.
Uh-huh.
And if they weren't given the coping tools, they the ones who are going to fall into the PTSD, the trauma, and eventually it comes out as alcoholism or something like that. Um, what would you say about that? Would you agree with him?
100%.
100%.
I would agree with it 100%. I can. I'm not a researcher. I haven't done any of that. I'm just a guy. I work in a treatment center, and I've worked with a lot of alcoholics and drug addicts, and I've asked a lot of questions of them.
And what are your discoveries?
My discoveries are that a lot of the guys that have the worst PTSD had rough childhoods.
So it supports what Dr. Gabor said.
Yes, and Tim Fletcher, and other psychologists, psychiatrists that are doing research on this today.
So the old legacy parenting, I'm going to parent like I was parented. You got to break it. You got to educate yourself and break it, or it's going to get passed on, right?
Correct.
God, the collateral damage,
Oh
dude.
man, if you're using shame and guilt to parent, stop.
It's really understanding the human ego.
Yes.
And the tools that you have. So why didn't the military? I'm not jumping on their ass right now. Why they've been knowing at least a lot of this. I mean, you're counseling right now. It seems like that should be plugged in early on, and you didn't get the help.
They do a little bit better now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because there's more of an emphasis on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still not what it should be. I can tell you this, that the net of the VA, I'm talking about like the CAS net of the VA, you think, if you walk into a VA hospital, you think, wow, there's a lot of veterans that are being served here.
Yeah.
Not even, there's so many more that are not being served.
Well, a lot of them don't think they have a problem like you were
Correct.
for 15 years.
That's right. Think about it. Like here I am. I don't even think I rate going to the VA. Right? I'm not missing limbs. I don't think I deserve to go to the VA.
Yeah, suck this up. I'm fine.
I'm good.
Oh man.
And then you
That
go.
makes me sad, bro. I mean, because I know you speaking for a lot of people.
I've had my driver in my vehicle, a guy I love dearly, and one of the saddest things I've ever done was go speak at this man's funeral. It hurt my heart. But I don't care what anybody says. He was a victim of the war, right? But he committed a murder-suicide. He killed his wife and killed himself. And
Fuck.
I knew it.
You knew you wasn't surprised?
Well, Was I surprised to hear that he did all of that? Yes. Was I surprised that he did something crazy like that? No.
Were you ever suicidal during your path?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Like how many of the years do you say you fell into
Oh,
that
I would
bucket?
say maybe for 2 weeks total.
Really?
Yeah.
Is there a rock bottom people talk about? Were you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there.
So it's a climb down, and then I mean, kind of describe your recovery, and then what like if you think of all the people you helped, is there a common denominator of recovery?
Um, the common denominator for I think that probably the common denominator for people that really get better, that truly get better, are the people that open themselves up to having God at the center of their lives.
You need a higher power,
You gotta have it.
and why is that?
If you don't have God at the center, who's going to be at the center?
Yeah.
Right? And so if I have God at the center of everything I do, then I'm not walking around thinking of me. I'm thinking, how can I serve God? Right? And then that way, when I'm doing my daily work in the center, right?
You emulating.
Correct. I'm saying, all right, here's a man that needs my help. How can I serve him? Right? And I'm not thinking about what I get out of the deal, even though I know that I'm going to get juice out of the relationship, right? Because I get to help him, I get juice.
So was that a aha moment, or was that a slow build?
Man, that's a slow build, because for me that was brand new. Like I didn't have a religious background as a child, so the whole thing of coming to know God was very new for me. Coming to do something for the honor of God, right? Or just like saying a prayer and saying, God, let me do your will today. Don't let me hurt anybody. Send me somebody to help.
The serenity prayer, all that stuff.
Yeah, something like that. Just doing that, and then standing up and doing that, and then at the end of the day, when you can say, man, I did this, I did that, right, I did, and then you feel good.
Is it a day-to-day success story, or you hear like a lot of alcoholics would say, I want to get through this day. I'm gonna make the best of this day.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought that up. We're constantly, I did a group today at the treatment center, and it was on Memento Mori. I don't know if you've ever.
Help me out.
Okay, so Memento Mori goes all the way back to the days of the ancients and Socrates. And
seize the day.
well, Memento Mori is remember that you too will die.
Oh yes, that's a Marcus Aurelius.
That's where
deal.
it started, but so it went from Socrates to Epictetus to Marcus Aurelius, and then the early Christians grabbed onto it as well. And the reminder is not oh, you're going to die. It's,
I'm mortal. Take advantage of my time.
I could die tomorrow.
Yeah.
Today is the most important day that I could possibly have. Today, I need to lead a virtuous life.
Yeah, and I'm definitely plugged into you there because everybody says live in the moment, do this and this, but we're just programmed with our senses are overloaded with all this crap, and sometimes we forget to truly live in this moment and enjoy that cup of coffee and tea and this conversation we're having and dial in. And I think through God or through, however you got there, whatever gives you living for the day.
Correct.
That's the formula, bro. That's it.
It's it. And, there's, you hear it all the time or whatever, one day at a time. That's all we have. Mm-hmm. You hear it in, not just around recovery, but you hear it around everything. One day at a time. Memento mori.
Hey, look.
One day at a time, yeah. Right? All we have is today. What are we going to do with it? Mm-hmm. Are we going to use it for good?
Yeah.
Or are we going to sit around and worry about our finances all day? Right? Are we going to worry about how come I don't have the new truck? Right? Why my house isn't big enough?
Again, it goes back to that ego, man. It's a mother, bro.
Right? So then, but if I'm worried about my relationship with God and staying sober, right? Then, because if I'm worried about being sober, then God's going to be first anyway. Then, boom. Everything else falls in place. I have less worry about all the other stuff because I'll be focused on other things that are not worldly like that.
No, I agree. I love it. So at your stage right now, do you go back to try to repair things, or have you transitioned to a forward thinker? I can only control this day, or maybe a little of both.
Both. I still have things that I'm trying to repair and mend, that I'm in process.
Yeah. Yeah. That's got to be scary.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you don't know if you can jack it up more or whatever.
Man, and look, sometimes our old stuff stays with us a long time. Because those old habits don't die easy, right? We still make the same mistakes. We still will make bad. Like with me, money is bad for me. I got to be careful, and I have a hard time not just managing money, but always seem to find these little dangerous pitfalls, and so I have to have help. you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So,
but you know that.
Yes,
and you can control that.
Right.
So you're a little older. You're a little wiser. You came through a lot. Healthier, mentally healthier. Is there any funerals you have to have? Like, do you have to bury some old Dodd Davis people, or do you embrace that as taking it with you as who you were and carry it with you to serve better? Like, clearly you're counseling and serving other people, so you've taken that and turned it into a very clearly needed service. Tell me how does that mentally play into who you are becoming?
Bob, I can tell you that if you would have caught me somewhere in the mid 90s and told me that this is what my life would look like, and that I would be sober and happy, and I don't know if I would have believed you. If you would have told me that I would have a real relationship with God, I would have said, I doubt that. And if you would have told me that I could still, have some of the same problems and issues that I, had and be okay with it, I would have said no. I doubt that. But here I sit, and I can tell you I don't make as much money as I used to make from other professions in my prior history. I still have a lot of the same issues that I had before, but I'm happier than I've ever been.
Nice.
And my yoke is lighter.
Nice.
Right?
Nice.
And so, yeah. I actually, my mom passed away in 2013. And we always had a contentious type of relationship. I love my mom, but it's just contentious. I'll just leave it at that. I need to go and make peace with her again. I've done it before, but I need to go up there again.
On that note right there, do you, now that you're older, do you view your mom and her tools and perhaps the way she was raised or whatever? I mean, do you give her a little more grace now than you did as a younger man?
Yeah.
I mean, you almost have to, right, Don?
Well, now I've even heard some of the stories of what her house was like.
Yeah, I bet.
Growing up.
I bet.
Because I often wondered, I was like, man, who taught her that?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I'm most happy about is that none of my kids had to experience any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And
so you were self-aware enough to not, the best you could anyway,
Yes.
not to expose them to that
Yes.
type of behavior.
None of it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Now, they got other behaviors.
Yeah.
But they didn't get that,
Yeah. Man, look, it's complex, dude. Look,
I know, man.
life is complex, and I take a spoonful of the Buddha culture, and I have a good friend of mine, Panad. He's sort of teaching me a little bit about it, but he says, the Buddha believes that suffering is because you're not living your true self. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So there, according to Buddha, is that there is a pathway to find your truth self. And of course, when you find and you live in your truth self, that's what they call nirvana.
Right.
And so, I think there's a lot of truth to that, in that we're programmed to be certain things as we're being raised, instead of allowing this human being, this soul, this whatever, to bloom like it's supposed to. And I think there's just this your ego's pulling you to where you want to be. And like I'm looking at you, and I just met you yesterday for a brief amount of time. This is our first conversation, really, but I see now that you're getting closer to your true self is what I'm looking at. I see a pretty happy guy right now. You know?
Well, thank you.
But it's been a journey.
It ain't always been easy. No, but it's I look back on it, and my journey it's always been exciting. I can tell you that. There's never been a dull moment.
No doubt.
Yeah, never been a dull moment.
So, if you can go back to you today, go back to your 22-year-old self, or if you were counseling a 22-year-old that you recognize everything looks familiar, what is your advice, or how would you try to counsel and coach this guy up to not waste, but not to go through 20 years of torment and destructive behavior?
Oh, wow, Bob. Man, I don't think you're going to like this answer. I really don't. Because my goal is to have people come to me after, maybe I've made contact with them, or maybe, we've talked, and when they come to me, they say, I am ready. I want to know how.
But man, there's no way you can shortstop that, because why do you? I'm asking this because of my ignorance.
I know.
Why do you have to hit a wall to hit rock bottom? Is that just the way the brain and the ego works, or can you just say, hey, look, I know you're heading here, but can we change these thoughts up a little bit? Can we get you thinking a different way? Because thoughts are nothing but photographs floating through your brain. It's nothing but photographs and words. And if you can redirect that, I know I'm simplifying, and you're laughing at me because you're like, dude, you have no idea what you're talking about.
No.
But give me some hope.
Yes. So it makes total sense. And that's the baffling part about people that are out of control with their drinking, people that would be termed as alcoholics, right? That's the completely baffling part about what they're going through is
they don't even know.
Rational thinking is out the window.
See, that's what I can't get my head around.
Yeah, because
where is your rationality?
It's like, you say to them, don't you see what you're doing with your life? And they say, oh, dear sir, can't you see that I have so much more to lose? I'm not even near done. I still have a car. My rent's paid. I haven't been kicked out yet. My bills, my power's still on. I got a lot to lose yet. So, yeah, you can back off.
And the compulsion continues.
Correct.
Every day.
Because
is it an immature brain? Was something left out that needs to slowly get fixed? I'm trying to understand.
Great, I love this.
You have to help me out because I don't understand.
Yeah.
My compassion's there. Look, I tell you this, I have some great friends of mine.
You do. I'm meeting some of the people around here.
And I could tell you, I surely won't name names, but I got a lot of people that struggled with alcoholism and drug abuse and that stuff. And I gotta honestly say, uh, I've never, there was never a condition for me in my friendship with any of those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love them no matter what.
Yeah.
You know, I worry about them.
Yeah.
You know, I had to drive one to the rehab not too long ago, because man, it's time we need to go. But I don't know, but I know it's something that they can't turn on and off, and so I can't help them, but I'd like to get them to a place with help. But you come from it,
Yeah.
so
Working in the field, I can tell you it's nearly it's so baffling because loved ones, parents, mothers, brothers, aunts, uncles, they're baffled. Why?
mhm.
Why is he doing this? You know? Can't understand it.
Well,
Right?
if there was just a pill that
And then then they ask, right? And they'll ask their loved one, "Why do you do this?" And if they're really being honest, they'll say, "I don't know."
but it got to be self. I don't want to say hate, but they got to be they. It has to be, in my view, like I call it self-destruction. But there's something about themselves that they're not coming to terms with. How in the hell can they have a relationship when you're fighting this thing? And I don't know what it is. I'm asking you.
Yeah, so I can remember one time, just from my own example. I remember one time my mom asking me, "Why do you do this?" She was like, she was serious. She was like, "Why do you do this? I don't understand why you do this." And I was in a very serious moment. I was like, "I don't know." And she said, "That's not good enough. I'm not going to accept that right now. Right? I want to know why you do this." And I was like, because I didn't know what was working behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had no idea what's causing the problems or why everything was the way it was. I haven't had time or the skill or the knowledge to put things in place.
Dr. Gabor talks about that. He talks about that about the African Americans, and really he talked about the Native Americans, and for years everybody's saying, well, the Native Americans are predisposed to alcoholism, and he says, or 200 years of trauma, systemic generational trauma, and they're dealing with it. And I'm like, well, that makes a lot more sense than me genetically predisposed to any of that.
Right.
Your brain's rewired to handle trauma, and it doesn't know what to do. So I'm not pretending to know. I'm just sort of pulling things from what me trying to understand from professionals. And it goes back, it's complicated, man.
And you'll also hear some of the top, like Dr. Gabor and Tim Fletcher, and some of the other ones. God, I forget her name.
But a lot of studies, a lot of observations.
There's a lot out there, but there's more than there's several people out there that are saying that addiction is, or the opposite of addiction is, when you have people that are together. It's isolation, congregation, right?
So you you relate to that.
Yeah.
Isolation
So
is
this
way
is
better.
where
than,
you have,
like a family unit or
yeah,
something.
it's like, yeah.
And you was finding that in your unit
Oh,
in
yeah.
military.
Yeah, yeah.
So you was attracted to that.
Yeah, yeah. These guys, yeah. So when you have unity
Yeah, yeah.
and society, people working together, that's why, I see it all the time. These guys come off the streets where they've been fending for themselves. They've been living they might be surrounded by people, right? But they're living alone and they're fighting for themselves every single day. They come into the treatment center. They have a few days. They detox and whatever. Next thing you know, they got some friends, right? People that are genuinely care about them and are looking out for them and are showing them around and making sure they know everything. And within just a few days, they can smile again, right?
So what advice would you give for someone who has loved ones around them that's in the middle of alcoholism or this fight, and it's a lifelong fight? I mean, look, I would like to think I display and show compassion because I have it. Are they looking for compassion? They're not looking for pity. They just looking like I had one of our friends tell us last night. I've done enough hurt to y'all. This is for me to deal with. What's the healthy way to go through life with somebody? You don't want to ostracize them. You want compassion. I just love them as they are. I don't care.
Yeah.
You drinking? Let's drink. Whatever. I'm not gonna feed it, but I'm not gonna. Don't come around if you're drinking. I mean, I know that's
Yeah.
that's. It has to be unconditional, in my opinion. Unless there's a lot of damage done, which we've all seen, and you have to say, "Hey, I'm not gonna let you damage the rest of the unit."
Right. I would recommend, for each individual family, without knowing a complete family, background and history, that you reach out for some family counseling. You know what I mean? Just so they can dig into the background and help unwind, an appropriate way for you to handle that. Or for the individual that's seeking that to handle it. Because, sometimes it's time to use some tough love.
Well, if you love someone, have compassion for them, a family member, whatever. I know how most dudes are. They want to fix something.
Yeah,
they think
yeah.
they can whip out a toolbox.
Mm-mm.
Hey, let's go talk. Let's go take a ride, and I'm gonna make you all better. And it's just that's ignorance on the people around them.
Yep.
It.
Or you'll hear somebody say, "But just send them to me for a week."
Oh God.
Come
on, right?
Yeah.
But they believe a lot.
They
of
believe
people,
it.
They believe that shit.
I know.
Bruh.
I know it. So.
Well, man, it looks like you winning right now, and I'm a big fan. I know we just met, but how many people do you try to counsel? Is there a number in your mind? Is it quality over quantity? Is it what you just let the day take you to where it needs to go?
I do. God's given me plenty of opportunities here recently. My younger brother has moved in with me, and so I'm trying to get adjusted to that. And work is great. I stay busy. And I feel like I'm at a stage in my life where I can truly call myself recovered.
Nice.
From a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body.
Well, congratulations
Thank you.
on that.
Thank you.
So, how does that feel?
Uh, 7 years ago, I couldn't not drink, right? I couldn't not take a drink. And today I can't pick one up.
And you feel like you replace that with your duty to not only God but to your life mission. Like, do you feel like you're finally getting in line to the person that you might have? The universe might have put you right where you need to be, dude. You know, who knows?
Yes.
You know?
So, Bob, I guess today, right? I would consider myself religious today. Haven't been that my whole life. I don't pretend to always know what God's specific will is for me, okay? But in very general terms, I can tell you with absolute certainty, because I know what I'm like when I'm drinking. I know that God doesn't want me drinking, because he doesn't want me carousing, and he does not want my head filled up with the same thoughts that I have when I'm drinking. That's not his purpose for me.
Good.
Right? And so when I am helping his kids, when I'm at work and I'm helping, his kids, or if I'm somewhere else and I'm being of general service to mankind, then yeah, he's happy with that, right? Being a net plus to society, right?
Yeah. You're a giver, not a taker. Now.
Man, that's about all we can ask for.
Well, hey. So you're 7 years sober.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
7.5 or so.
Good. Well, you know what? You got a lot more to give. That's what I think. And
I think so.
I think you're in a good place. And listen, not easy for people to come talk about this stuff.
Not always.
But, maybe if one person watches this and it gives them a little bit jog to the right side of it, then it was worth a cup of coffee.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I enjoyed it.
Well, good. Maybe come back for a little bit, another session later, I mean, I've learned a bunch.
Yeah, I would love
thank
to.
You, I thank you for educating me and it's our society's, it's been around for a long time, and guess it's going to always be here. And I think the more we all educate ourselves on the, our behavior, our egos, what's important, what's not important, and we just all get a little better. We just enriching each other,
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
Well, I'd like to thank Dodd Davis coming over. Anything you need to plug or anything, any numbers or anything that for people that listening in that might need some help what's the best place for them to reach out? If not to you, to where can they get help?
So all the veterans should know the Veterans Crisis Line. Mm-hmm. The crisis hotline is 800-273-8255. That's from the Louisiana Department of Veterans Affairs. And 988+1, that's from the military crisis line from Military One Source. But
get out there, try to get some help if you need it, and And also got a lot of cool things happening at the cafe. Please follow us on our app, Cafe Detente LA. And we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. And just check out our newspaper and check out some more True Brew Bobcast. And we'll see you again real soon. Dodd, thanks for coming by.
Thank you, Bob. I enjoyed it.
All right, brother.
It was awesome.
All right.
All right. No, man.